When I walked into the room, no one looked up. They were too busy laughing, slicing cake, complaining about traffic. Someone was talking about a neighbor's divorce. Someone else about Tesla stock. My brother was showing off his new Rolex, even though I knew he'd borrowed money from my father just last month. I placed the gift on the table, wrapped in gold, with a note handwritten in ink. Not a card, a letter. I spent 3 days writing it, folded it 3 times, tucked it beneath the ribbon. No one opened it, not even out of curiosity. My name is Elena. I'm 31. I grew up in a house where silence meant failure. If you didn't fight for attention, you didn't deserve it. If you didn't raise your voice, you weren't really saying anything. If you worked behind the scenes, it meant you had nothing worth showing. I wasn't the loud one. That was my brother. I wasn't the pretty one. That was my sister. I wasn't the troubled one. That was my cousin who still lived with us. I was the one who kept the lights on, quietly. I helped with bills when the power got cut. Drove my siblings to practice. Took shifts when my mother's back went out. I bought groceries when my dad's account froze again. I signed the loan papers for my brother's second chance after he defaulted the first. They called me responsible. They said I was steady, good with money, reliable, but never interesting, never impressive, and definitely not successful. So when my father's 60th birthday came around, I told myself I'd try one more time. It was a whole production, a rented ballroom at a golf club, caterers, champagne towers, a slideshow looping old pictures of him with his high school friends. I flew across the country, took unpaid leave, paid for my own hotel, bought a suit for the occasion, plain but tailored. I got him an engraved watch, Swiss, minimal. The kind he'd once pointed out in a catalog and said was too classy for someone like him. I had it custom engraved on the back. To the man who taught me strength in silence. I thought it was poetic. I paid extra to have it shipped early. It came in a velvet box with a note from the maker. I put the box beside the gifts table. Hours later, it was still there, untouched. I made my rounds, said hello, asked how people were doing. I got half smiles, dismissive nods. My cousin asked, "Are you still doing that computer thing?" I nodded. She didn't ask more. I watched as my father gave his toast, thanked my brother for always being there when I needed him, my sister for taking care of the house. Even his old friend Mark, who once crashed our family car drunk, got a thank you. He didn't mention me. I smiled, took a sip of water, folded my napkin into a square. I told myself I didn't expect anything, but I had. The cake was rolled out, triple layered, covered in fondant. The kind my father said he hated, but now claimed was his favorite. People clapped, toasted, took pictures. I sat near the edge of the room, near a fake plant. My chair was a folding one. All the nicer chairs had been taken. At one point, my aunt leaned in and whispered, "Well, at least you're not still doing that silly online thing, right?" She laughed. The table laughed. Even my father grinned. He turned toward me and said, "You always were a little lost, weren't you?" I didn't flinch, didn't respond, just stared at my fork. I looked at the watchbox again, still unopened. I remembered being 9, sitting on the staircase, watching my father through the door, yelling at a collections agent over the phone. I remembered being 14, hearing him tell my mother that I wasn't tough enough, that I needed to learn how the world works. I remembered being 23, when he told me to get a real job instead of playing around on the internet. I remembered being 28, when I sent him my first client contract for review. He didn't respond. 3 months later, I found it in his glove compartment, unopened, coffee-stained. I stood up slowly, straightened my jacket, smoothed the creases on my sleeves. I walked over to the gift table, picked up the box, slipped the card from beneath the ribbon, slid both into my purse, walked past the bar, past the dance floor, past my cousin who didn't look up, past my brother who was showing someone a meme on his phone. No one asked where I was going, no one said my name. I stepped outside. It was raining lightly, just enough to fog the windshield. I didn't have an umbrella, but I didn't rush. The parking lot was full of shiny cars. I found mine, modest, clean, paid off in full, sat inside, let the engine run for a moment, let the warmth fill the cabin. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't text anyone. I just sat there, watching the fog smear across the glass, the wipers dragging slow lines across it, erasing nothing. Eventually, I pulled out of the lot, drove to the edge of town, stopped for gas I didn't need, looked at my phone, no messages, no missed calls. I booked a red-eye flight from my car, boarded with just my carry-on, landed before sunrise, took a cab to my apartment, walked up 3 flights, closed the door behind me and locked it. I made tea, sat on the floor, unwrapped the box, took the watch out, turned it over in my hand, still ticking. I put it in the drawer, next to the letter I never mailed. Next to the spare key no one asked for. I didn't go to sleep. I didn't go online. I opened my laptop, wrote 6 lines of code, fixed a bug someone flagged in a comments section, pushed an update, logged it. Then I went outside, walked 3 blocks. The air was cold, sharp, the kind that bites your lungs when you breathe deep. I breathed it anyway. I wasn't angry, just finished. I didn't slam the door. I didn't say goodbye. I just left. And no one came after me. I moved cities 2 weeks later, didn't tell anyone, didn't post about it, didn't forward my mail. I packed my life into 6 boxes, left the furniture behind, sold the rest, found a room over a retired nurse's garage. No pets, no guests, no questions. It had 1 window, a stained carpet, and no lock on the door. Perfect. The first morning I woke up to silence. No yelling, no clinking dishes, no door slams. I didn't recognize the stillness. It felt like guilt, so I filled it. Took a job inputting insurance claims, 2nd job answering phones for a dentist's office, 3rd job moderating online forums for a tech startup. I slept 4 hours a night, 8 standing up. My phone stayed off. They didn't call. I told myself it was better that way. The side project, the one my cousin laughed about, I started building it properly, not the old version with broken buttons and ugly fonts. This time I built it clean, sharp, quiet, a tool for freelancers, simple, useful, no venture capital, no blog posts, just code. I watched YouTube videos at 2 a.m., learned about APIs, servers, latency, rewrote everything twice. First users came from Reddit, then Hacker News, then a blog in Dutch linked to it. I watched traffic spike, then crash, then hold steady. Every new sign-up came with a name. None of them were mine. I kept their feedback in a spreadsheet, color-coded it, sorted by type, fixed every bug myself. I didn't post on Facebook, didn't text my siblings, didn't go back for Christmas. My brother sent one message that said, "Are you coming home or are you still doing that internet crap?" I didn't reply. I deleted the thread, blocked the number. It didn't hurt. It just closed something. By month 6, I had users in 17 countries. I added a paid tier, $5 a month. Some paid more. I never asked why. The first time the balance crossed $1,000, I just stared at the screen. It felt like someone else's number, like I'd borrowed it. I didn't celebrate. I opened a savings account, named it Quiet Wins, started sending 10% to it every Friday, religiously. People asked to collaborate. I said no. A productivity coach emailed, wanting to feature me in a newsletter. She asked, "Can I tell your story?" I said, "There is no story." Then blocked her too. I kept the platform small, clean, anonymous. I added a testimonials page, no photos, just initials, all lowercase. This tool helped me quit my job, JM. My first time feeling organized, SN. Thank you for building something that works. AV, I read those lines every night before bed. Didn't screenshot them, didn't print them, just remembered. I still worked my day job. Didn't need to, just liked the routine. Liked walking home past the laundromat. Liked eating dinner alone in silence. My landlady would wave from her window. We never spoke. Once, she slipped a note under my door, said, "You're very quiet. I hope that means you're well." I framed it. By the end of year 1, I'd broken even. No loans, no debt, no help. I hired a college intern to manage support tickets, paid him double the rate I got at my first job. He didn't know that. He called me ma'am. I didn't correct him. Some nights I stared at my screen for hours, not working, not thinking, just existing. I thought about the watch in my drawer, still ticking, still untouched. Sometimes I'd dream my father opened it, read the engraving, understood. Then I'd wake up and write more code. I missed nothing. Not the noise, not the jokes I was never part of, not the group photos where I was always cropped halfway. I didn't date, didn't drink, didn't go out. It wasn't loneliness, it was clarity. Every day I didn't hear from them, I felt more mine. A girl from high school messaged me once, said, "You're doing great. We always knew you would." I ignored it. They hadn't. When I was 17, she laughed when I said I wanted to build something useful. She told me to marry rich instead. Now she wanted to collab. I archived the message. I started getting emails from nonprofits. One was from a rural library in Montana. They said they used my platform to track donations, said it made things easier. Another was from a woman in Kenya. She said it helped her organize sponsors for her girls' education fund. She wrote, "Thank you, founder." Founder. That word clung to my ribs. I stared at it like it was a name I'd never heard spoken out loud. I didn't respond, just read it again. Founder. I ordered business cards, plain black letters, no title, just my name. Just an email. I never gave them out, just like knowing they existed. I hired another assistant, taught him everything myself. He called the code weirdly beautiful. I didn't know how to respond. I just nodded. On weekends, I read bug reports like some people read poetry. Every error was a message. Every fix was a decision I made, quietly, fully. I built new features, integrated new tools, wrote my own documentation. I kept my voice out of everything. No founder bio, no social links, no photos. It wasn't shyness, it was ownership. They couldn't mock what they couldn't find. On the 1-year mark, I lit a candle, not to celebrate, just to mark it. I took the watch out of the drawer, turned it over, still ticking. I smiled, briefly. No one saw it. I wasn't angry. I didn't want revenge. Not yet. I just wanted to keep building. To make something no one could take credit for. No one could interrupt. No one could belittle. Something that was mine. Not borrowed, not funded, not applauded. Just built, line by line, in silence. The outcast, quietly becoming something else. The call came on a Wednesday, from a number I didn't recognize. I never do. I stopped saving them. I let it ring, then again, then voicemail. "Dad's in the hospital. You should come." No name, no please. Just expectation, packaged like obligation. I stared at the phone, didn't move, then hit delete. 3 days later, a message. "Mom says he's asking for you." I waited 24 hours. Booked the cheapest one-way flight I could find. Middle seat, no bag. I wore black. Not for grief, just because it matched the way I felt. The airport was colder than I remembered. Or maybe I was just thinner inside. No one picked me up. I didn't expect them to. Took a cab, paid cash. Driver asked if I was visiting family. I said no. The hospital smelled like bleach and old machines. I found the room on my own. Walked past 3 nurses who didn't ask who I was. When I stepped in, no one looked up. My mother was asleep in the chair. My brother sat scrolling through his phone. My father was awake. He looked smaller, not sick, just reduced, like time had worn him down without asking. He looked at me, didn't smile. Said, "You came?" I said, "I didn't stay away." No one spoke after that. I stood, watched the machines beep. Then I left the room. No one followed. I sat in the hallway for an hour. Someone's baby cried 2 floors up. A nurse laughed behind the desk. Time moved without needing me. Later that evening, my sister called. Said they were having a dinner. Asked if I'd join. Said everyone missed me. Said they were proud. She didn't say of what. I said, "Where is it?" She named a restaurant I remembered. The one they'd all gone to after my college graduation. While I took the bus home alone. I said, "Sure." Showed up late. Wore the same black coat. The hostess asked, "Are you with the family?" I said, "No." I built something. She looked confused. I let her be. The table was full. They had ordered drinks already. Laughed like they always did. Like no one had ever gone missing. My brother stood up, arms open, like I was someone he wanted to hug. I didn't move. He dropped them, sat down. My mother said, "You look grown." I said, "I was always growing. You just didn't see it." My cousin, the one who once mocked my idea, asked if I was still doing the tech stuff. I said, "It's doing me now." He laughed. Uncomfortable. They asked questions. "How's the job? What do you do? Do you work with AI? Do you still live alone?" I answered none of them directly, just said, "It works." That's enough. My sister's husband said, "You're so mysterious now." I took a sip of water, said nothing. The food came, they started eating, then someone asked, "What's the name of your company again?" Before I could answer, the waitress stepped in. She looked maybe 23. Nervous, eyes wide, she said, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but are you Elena?" I nodded, slowly. She smiled, too big, too real. Said, "I use your platform. It changed my life. I just started my own freelancing business last month, because of you." The table went quiet, she said. "I tell people about it all the time. You're like a quiet genius or something." Then she looked at everyone and said, "She's the founder," and left. The silence at the table was delicious. I didn't look at any of them, just kept cutting my food. No one knew what to say. My brother cleared his throat. My mother blinked too fast. My cousin checked his phone. No one looked at me. I didn't smile, didn't gloat, just existed like I always had. When the check came, no one reached for it. I took it, paid, tipped well, no one thanked me. Outside, it was drizzling. My coat didn't have a hood. They stood under the awning, talking, fidgeting. My sister said, "Hey, I heard you're doing really well now. If you ever want to help out with Mom and Dad's house," I interrupted her, said, "I already did. 10 years ago, you just didn't notice." She looked confused, didn't ask what I meant. I didn't explain. Someone offered to drive me. I declined. I walked 3 miles in the rain, got soaked. It felt cleaner than that table. The next morning, my father called. I answered. He said, "I didn't know. What you had built, what you had become." I said, "You never asked." He said, "I'm proud." I said, "It's too late for that." Not angry, not cold, just factual. He paused, said, "I always thought you'd come back different. But you came back better." I said, "No, I came back complete." Hung up, didn't block the number, just let the silence sit. 2 days later, the lawyer called. Family trust was being revised. They wanted input. They wanted me to attend. Said, "Your presence would mean a lot." I said, "To who?" She didn't answer. The meeting was in a beige office, windowless, 1 cup of coffee on the table, mine. The lawyer asked if I wanted to be added to the property list. Asked if I'd want to make a statement. I said no. I'd write something instead. She nodded, said she understood. I left nothing to chance, wrote 1 sentence. "I release all claims and make no requests. I am not theirs anymore." Signed it, stamped it. Left before anyone else arrived. They called later, all of them. Some left voicemails. One said, "We didn't know you felt that way." Another, "It's not too late to come back." And one, "Are you angry?" I didn't respond to any. I wasn't angry, I just wasn't theirs anymore. The invitations came in spring. Cream-colored envelope, thick cardstock, my brother's wedding, finally marrying his 3rd fiancée. The one who said I looked lonely last time we met. She called my platform a cute little business. The RSVP line said, "Will you attend? Will you give?" I didn't answer. Weeks passed, then a follow-up email from him. Subject, "Can we talk?" Message, "Big day coming. Would love to have you involved. Venue's expensive. Any help would be appreciated. You know how these things go?" I read it twice, then deleted it, didn't reply. The next day, my cousin messaged me. The one they used to joke about, the family dropout, the disappointment. He'd been living in his car, got diagnosed with something no one could pronounce. They stopped answering his calls years ago. He messaged me 3 lines. "Don't know if you remember me. I tried your site. It's the first time I felt useful in years." I wired him $5,000 that night. No questions, no call. He thanked me with a voice note. I didn't listen to it, but I saved it. My sister called next. Said she needed a loan. Said it was urgent. Said she was embarrassed to ask. I said, "Then don't." She waited, then said, "You really think you're better than us now?" I said, "No, I just know I'm not one of you." Hung up. She didn't call again. 2 months later, the will changed. I got a letter from the family lawyer, marked CONFIDENTIAL. It said my father had listed me as sole executor, said I had the right to make decisions about the estate. I sent one sentence back: "I decline. Give it to someone who still believes they belong." My cousin got it instead, the one I helped, the one they forgot. The family started whispering, emails, texts, quiet questions. "Did you really give him power of attorney? Are you sure that's smart? Don't you want to protect the legacy?" I said nothing. They'd never let me protect anything before. Now it wasn't mine to guard. The platform kept growing. New users, new testimonials. I didn't promote it, didn't take interviews. I let it grow in silence, like moss on stone. Someone tagged me in a post once. She built something we all needed and never asked for attention. I reposted it, no comment. The wedding came and went. I saw the photos online: white dress, gold arch, expensive catering. My name never mentioned. My contribution never offered. No one asked why I wasn't there. They knew. My mother called on my birthday, left a message, said she missed how things used to be. I listened to her voice once, then deleted the recording. The truth was, things had never been anything. Not for me. I'd always been a ghost at their table, a shadow in their photos. Now I was just gone. One night, the waitress who once called me the founder emailed me. She said she was opening a small co-working space, asked if I'd come to the launch, said, "You're the reason this is even possible." I went, quietly, no entourage, no announcement. She introduced me with one sentence. "This is Elena. She taught me I didn't need permission." I didn't speak, just nodded. People clapped. No one asked where I came from. No one cared about my family. They just knew what I built. And that was enough. Months passed. Then I got another call. From a number I used to know by heart, my father. He sounded tired, said, "You've changed everything." I didn't respond. He said, "I didn't know how to raise someone like you." I said, "You didn't try." He said, "I wish I could do it over." I said, "You already did." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I built myself again." "Without you." Silence. Then, "Do you hate me?" I waited, said, "No, I outgrew you." That was the last time we spoke. When he died, I didn't go to the funeral, sent flowers, nothing fancy, no card. I heard my name wasn't mentioned in the eulogy. That felt accurate. Later, my sister sent one final email, said they were dividing what was left, asked what I wanted. I replied with 2 words, "Nothing owed." That's how it ended. No speeches, no revenge speeches, no courtroom showdowns, no final slamming doors, just decisions, quiet ones. I didn't fund my brother's house, didn't help with the second mortgage, didn't step in when their power got cut off. I helped the cousin they ignored, funded a startup from a girl who used to waitress, gave a scholarship to a teenager who reminded me of me. They never saw it coming, because they never saw me. Not really. They thought I was still the quiet girl, the helper, the fixer, the afterthought. They never noticed I stopped showing up, stopped apologizing, stopped explaining who I was becoming. They thought silence meant weakness. It didn't. It meant I was watching, choosing, separating what deserved me and what didn't. I didn't burn bridges. I just stopped walking back. And by the time they realized what they lost, I had already built a world where they didn't exist. If you've ever felt like the forgotten one, if you've rebuilt your life in silence, if you've learned to stop explaining your worth, share this. You're not alone.